that we don't always get. I mean, one of the great examples is, for a while, in the latter half of the 20th century, giving birth became a very clinical, medical intervention where it's really a very natural thing that that has been done without the help of hospitals for centuries. Now, it was not as successful, and the rate of maternal mortality was a lot higher. But is there a middle ground where we can respect and understand sort of natural processes and not feel we have to laboratorify them? That's a real word.
Yes.
But there's lots of reflections we have to do around quality of life, quality of care, quality of outcomes within our health system. And one of the things that the federal government is very much focusing on partnering with the provinces, because of course that's a provincial area of jurisdiction, is encouraging the kind of innovation, encouraging the kind of approach around patient-centered science, research, and treatment that is going to lead us down the right path.
So before we go, I know it's time to go, but I've gotten a lot of messages from my colleagues in the environmental community, and I've been to Fort McMurray, Alberta. It really is an amazing place in the most troubling way. But this pipeline, Kinder Morgan, if you don't mind, tell my colleagues in the States, tell us about the Kinder Morgan pipeline. And because everybody, if you got nothing else to do before you're done, check out the solutionsproject.org. You're familiar with the Solutions Project? These are civil engineers mostly at Stanford University, right near San Francisco. Done an analysis that you can power all of Canada renewably right now if you just decided to do it. There's, in the prairie provinces, there's so much wind. Even here, on a day like this, there's so much solar energy that if you could capture it and solve the storage and transmission problems, you could run the whole place. Nevertheless, there's this enormous fossil fuel industry, right? So tell us about that.
Okay. First of all, I agree. There is a tremendous potential for renewable energy, for wind, for solar, for geothermal, for tidal, for all the new things that we haven't developed yet that are coming down the line, and we should be very excited about it. And that's why we are investing massively in renewables, in research and science towards that. However, we can't get there tomorrow, right? We're not going to get there tomorrow. So we are going to have a transition phase while we develop alternatives to fossil fuels. So while we are developing those alternatives to fossil fuels, we still need to be able to power our homes, our cars, our economy, and we have to get there. We have to do it in the most efficient and non-polluting way, absolutely. And that's what we're very much focused on. Now, 50 years ago, people knew there were oil sands resources in Alberta. They just didn't know how to actually convert that into any usable fuel. Technology allowed us to develop ways of extracting the bitumen and making use of it.
There was a chemical engineer.
That's right. It was
an asphaltene into usable oil.
It was a scientific challenge that was solved by innovation. Now the similar challenge we're facing is how do we draw on fossil fuels in the short term, or in the while we're still dealing with transition, in a way that does not contribute to global warming, that does not contribute as massively to climate change as it always has. So we need to figure out how to get there. That's why one of the things we're quite pleased with as we move forward on an actual plan to reach our carbon reduction targets under the Paris Agreements is that Alberta has put in an absolute cap on oil sands emissions. No matter how much the industry grows or develops, you will never be able to put more than, I think it's 100 megatons, and right now we're about 80, into the atmosphere. So that's an absolute cap that we actually calculate in with our plan on reaching the Paris Agreement targets. But on top of that, if Alberta is going to move forward on that, and if the entire country is going to move forward, as we are, on a national price on carbon, a framework that prices carbon pollution, either through a carbon tax or through a cap and trade system, depending on what the provinces want, we are actually going to reach our carbon reduction targets. So it's a piece, they're pieces that all go together. We're putting in a national price on carbon, which allows Alberta to put a cap on its oil sands emissions, as long as we are able to get, in the meantime, while we're still in this transition, our fossil fuel resources to new markets in the Pacific. Right now, the only market we have for our fossil fuels is to the United States, and therefore it gets massively discounted. If we can get our fossil fuels to new markets in the Pacific, we actually do better. Alberta does better, our Canadian economy does better, and we're making sure that we're innovating to keep things safe. Now, a pipeline is safer than oil by rail, certainly safer than oil by trucks. A modern pipeline can be very carefully monitored and can be done safely. The oceans part of it, we've invested in an oceans protection plan that is over $1 billion to make sure we're going to be figuring that out, and the way to do it is to move forward responsibly in both protecting our environment and protecting the jobs and the economy that still is reliant on fossil fuels and will be for another number of years. How many years that is depends a lot on the scientists in this room as we innovate, as we push forward. But you know, one of those things in politics is when you create that solution in the middle that have some people on one side really angry about certain parts of it and others on the other side really angry about different parts of it, most Canadians sort of feel that you've probably found that reasonable path forward that is going to both develop in responsible ways and protect our environment, which is what Canada is all about.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for being here today. Bill Nye, the science guy.
Thank you very much for